remember the jets, the Alpha jets. If you were in Sierra Leone, you experienced the Civil War. The Alpha jet from the Nigeria ECOWAS peacekeeping force jets was flying around over us, and weapons coming from nowhere. And then we learned the basic maneuvers of the soldiers. So we're running with a suitcase. People were running. So long story short, we went to the place where I was staying.
So I was trying to understand if maybe your father had any political position in terms of maybe office or something like that. This is going to be important for me now, in that the story actually begin understanding your father, that he have worked for a long period of time, for about 25 years. The government seized the money. But now he's beginning to become influential, whether he's fighting for the same government or so that is why I'm trying to understand if he had any political position or any influential position.
They said no FRC, no Sierra Leone. So that's when they started burning houses. The Kamajals, the ECOWAS peacekeeping force, and the loyal soldiers, they drove them away. So until then, they went back into the province area, and that was the time. It was around 2000, and then I made my way out of Sierra Leone. I went to Guinea, and then I almost lost my life because they said Sierra Leoneans were rebels and something like that. So from there, and I escaped. I found myself in Europe. My name is Buckarie Dumbuya, also known as Buckarie, and I always say to people, I was designed, made, nurtured in Sierra Leone, Freetown, and then developed in the United Kingdom. So the person that you see today have experienced calamities, civil war crisis, homelessness, and that led me to a point that I am known as an inspirational public speaking writer, dancer. I do fashion designing, and I help businesses, people, and organizations to realize their inner and then to achieve success. So that's pretty much about the person that you see today, Buckarie.
Thank you so much, Buckarie. I appreciate the time to speak to me today. Now, tell me a bit about your infancy. So you were born in Freetown, Sierra Leone, correct?
That's correct.
Tell me about what you see around you growing up as a child.
To begin with, I would like to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my words, my history, and some of the constraints I endure. As I said to you, you're a man of blessing. You're a man who helped other people create opportunity for them to thrive. I would confess to you, I've had several invitations to do TV interviews, and I said, you know what? I'm not ready for those people because I've got things that I've set up my priorities. So I just wanted to acknowledge you. That's because of that. Because of what you're doing, so I was inspired to speak. Thank you. So growing up as a child, tomorrow, a publishing company in America will publish my first series articles about my developments from Sierra Leone to the United Kingdom, entitled From Calamity to Prosperity, and then to do with personal success. So I was just painting a picture for you to understand and the audience to understand. So I won't say much about that, but I will say briefly to give you that journey. So that was the reason why. So it's pretty much what you asked me. So now, as a child, I was born in an environment, financial crisis was not a problem. Food was not a problem. My dad was a seaman, a traveler around the world. This man never had the opportunity to acquire formal education, but he had the opportunity to gain non-formal education. So he became one of the educated and wisest men ever lived on earth. So that man, when I was between the age of 9 and 10, he said to me as a child, I bought a land and I decided not to build a house, but to do whatever it takes to educate you and your siblings. As a child, that was like a seed of the transformational person that you see today, that he planted, he embedded in me. I embraced that I didn't know that it would be the wisdom that would lead me to freedom. So why I said that? So he bought a land. He educated, nurtured Buck, also known as Buckarie, with the resources that led me to a best-selling international author, that led me to become a master of science in design and innovation management, that led me to connect with key politicians, leaders around the world. So when I think it was late or in the 90s, early 90s, when my dad went back to Sierra Leone, he traveled around the world. He lived in the UK. We had library at home. Books was like a staple food. As a child, I didn't know the essence of it, but I know the value because of that word my dad embedded in my mind. So my siblings, because I'm the 7 out of 8 children, and I lost one of my siblings at the age of 3. So I was called the last thing that means in Sierra Leone. My mom would never give birth again to anyone, but I was the younger child. So 4 passed away. So when we moved from the location where I was born to another eastern part of Sierra Leone, and then crisis hit my parents. My dad were paid by the shipping company that he worked for over 25 years for life. As a child, I should have never suffered calamities. So as a result of that, the Sierra Leonean government, they took the money that the shipping company paid the seamen in Sierra Leone for life, for 3 children for life, my mother and my father. They suffered for that. So they did not pay them. So one of my twin sisters was seriously sick. I was 10, about 19. And I remember my dad, my parents, we started experiencing financial crisis. My dad sold one of the freezers that we had. Imagine every year would change furnitures. My dad would ship things, container, and it would give people. As a child, I experienced what society called poverty. In Sierra Leone, we said millionaire turned painter. What that means is that people were laughing at us. So we were living in a brick house, and then we went into zinc house. I experienced the time as a child when it was raining at night, we could not sleep, using buckets. I'm saying this is emotional I'm trying not to cry about it. It's the reason why I started to do in the session. And because you're a blessed man, that's why I'm going to reveal it on a platform. I have my platform to share this. But God didn't want me to share it. And he said, you know what? Share it here to Obehi. And it will be published tomorrow. My first series, the article, and I'm doing a movie about it. So the question you ask, I wasn't expecting this question, but I go with the inspiration from within. My dad was a spiritual father. So that word is nurtured in my head as a child. And it's a reference when you read the Bible. If I'm correct, I'm not an expert of the Bible, but the Spirit of Christ. I dreamt of him over 8 years ago, led me to read the Bible. I grew up as a Muslim child, gravitated towards Christianity because of the dream that I had over 8 years ago. And in Matthew 10, if I'm correct, Christ chose 12 disciples to follow him. It has nothing to do with their titles. Christ did not build a church, a physical building, but he empowered, he built people with words, gospel, words of inspiration. Gospel means good news. And that was a reflection of my dad, who knew I'll be talking about, making reference about the Bible. If my dad had not planted the seeds of the value of education, I would not have succeeded. Homelessness crisis, the Civil War crisis, without mindsets of warrior. So that's just a brief description of my childhood. But before we go to the next stage, when I was 14, I dropped out of school because of the same experience my dad went through. It's not that it did not work. It worked hard. We shouldn't have suffered. But the Sierra Leonean government, it took the benefits of them. As a child, I suffered that. But guess what? I did not see that as poverty. Though my mindset as a child, I experienced that state of poverty as a definition of the economic terminology in society. But looking back in retrospect, that was not the person I am. I was wealthy in my mind. Christ empowered the disciples, 12 people. And now how many followers we have as Christians? As Christians, over 2 billion followers. So that was the mindset my dad embedded in me. At the age of 14, I said, Mom, take me to uncle. That uncle was my second cousin, but I grew up knowing him as uncle, who was one of the most influential politicians in Sierra Leone. I said, Mom, I want to go to school. If my dad had not embedded that mindset in me, I would have dropped out, just like one of my sisters. So because of that, my mom took me to the politician. My second cousin, late lawyer, said, come out. If you Google him, you would know he was a lawyer. Yeah, I remember when my mom took me at the age of 14, we were sitting in his office. And he said, brother, my son wanted to go to school. He's been crying. He said, I need to come to uncle. And my mom explained his story. And that was the day I realized the pain my mom endured. She passed away last year. She's at the back of me. And then my uncle said, as long as it's ready to learn, I'll take care of him. But before that, he asked, he said, what about your husband? And my mom said, since he came back, he had not been back overseas. And the government, they've not paid. So that's when I started to go back to school after dropping out 2 years.
Thank you so much for that sharing. That is really deep and it's emotional. And sorry also for the passing away of your mother. Sorry about that.
Thank you, sir. It's life.
Now there is a lot of things that we can cover here relating to your story because they are important. We are here essentially about storytelling. We like to talk about what move people to do what they do, their experiences, their background. That is also some of the things that you are touching now. But let look, take a little time to reflect on why did they take the money from your father? I think people want to understand that.
The question you ask, if only I knew the answer as a child, I would have revealed the absolute answer to that. However, as you and I know from my own understanding, is due to greed and lack of empathy. And empathy is one of my core values I embrace. So my father was one of the seamen who had a contract with overseas shipping company. And during those days, Sierra Leone didn't even need a visa to come here. When my dad were traveling, they used to say to them, why they live in Sierra Leone? Because Sierra Leone is a wealthy nation with natural resources. So money was not a problem. So it was the contracts they had. You know, when they had a contract with the governments, these people, and when the shipping company paid the money, these greedy politicians, they took the money, and majority of them, they're no longer alive anymore. They took the money, and my dad, they went to court. They fought for it, and many of them died in a state of calamity, poverty. So, in a nutshell, was due to greed.
But your father took them to court, and because that is also important to understand. Because we're looking at a man who have spent all his life working. And what you are talking about now is the gratuity, the benefit of his labor. You did mention the Bible, but even in the Bible, I think it is said that a man shall live by his own sweat or by the labor of his own hands. We're not just going to use the Bible for that. Even in our African spirituality or an African way of life, it is natural that you shall reap what you plant. This is a man who have spent over 25 years working.
Yeah,
Why did the government have to seize the money? And you also said that the government was charged to court. What
yeah.
happened then? They still
But
didn't give you the money after they have been sued to court?
so it was not my dad alone. This was, I believe, hundreds of thousands of seamen. So they call them rank on five or something like that. So I'm curious to do investigation because as a young, I left Sierra Leone very young. I've lived in the UK for over 20 years, over a couple of decades. So I remember because some of the documents was burned during the Civil War crisis. Our house was burned down. I experienced that as well as a teenager. So the governments were my dad and they had like a union, the seamen union. So I remember last year I was having conversation with a few friends. I said we need to. I said I need to do research. I need to go around and investigate the seamen, the ones who are still alive, to find out more because we need to wake up this case. You know the parts of the world that we live, we can bring that case alive. So as a child, I didn't know much about it. All I knew because my dad had his documents and I said, if anything happened to him, we can use that document. Unfortunately, I remember because I've always been there for my parents to save their lives. because I was living with my brother before he left Sierra Leone, just before the attack in the city. He left Sierra Leone. So I was living on my own with one of his family friend, with his ex-partner. So when the rebel war crisis entered Freetown, so I said I would not run away to escape. People were running towards the west. I said I would go to the eastern parts of to go and die with my family. I would rather die with them or escape with them. I would not escape alone. So I went there and I said to my dad, they need to leave, not knowing that that was spiritual revelation in disguise. I didn't know about intuition. So my dad packed the documents, the seaman documents, in a suitcase, and my mom packed my jewelries, the ones my dad bought from overseas, all the most important things and documents. And we took them as we were heading towards where I was staying. And remember the jets, the Alpha jets. If you were in Sierra Leone, you experienced the Civil War, the Alpha jet from the Nigeria ECOWAS peacekeeping force jets was flying around over us, and weapons coming from nowhere. And then we learned the basic maneuvers of the soldiers. So we're running with a suitcase. People were running. So long story short, we went to the place where I was staying. And whilst we were in the house, every bombshell, that we had information that there was a ship at the airport launching across over our building. Our house was shaking. And as we were experiencing that, the house was vibrating. And I had the inspiration. I didn't know it was inspiration, but I'm speaking now because of my understanding. I said, Dad, Mom, let's leave. Let's go outside the house between the wall to hide for any fragments because we're feeling the vibration of the house. And then I said, let's move. And then we left the house, not knowing that I was saving my family. And then we went to on the cellar. That's where we're hiding. And my dad went the following night. I said he's going to view the house. And we didn't see him back. So he went to sleep with a late influential sheikh called Sheikh Mustafa. And then slept with that man, slept at his house because it was his best friend. And then he went to check, I think it was on Wednesday. And the house, all the documents he had were in the suitcase. There was ashes, nothing in the house. And I remember I was like this on the cellar. My mom and my other family members, young child, as a young boy. I remember, and then my dad cried. He said, I don't want to cry. My dad said, yeah, it's like, go for it. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. So my dad said, me picking the house, the dumbo. May its soul rest in peace. Yes, okay. I'll go. It's emotional. I've dealt with it. I'm coping with it. I'm just because my parents are not here no more. So it said, the house don't bomb. As a child, I became the inspirational spirit for them. And I just told my mom, I said, it's okay. I said that as long as we're alive. I had one tap, a red tap, and it's got white. I think I've got that on my Facebook, the image, and with one Nike trainers and one jean trousers, all the stuff that I was wearing. I said, it's okay. And then the next journey, we did not go back. All the documentation lost. Those are the documents that my dad said if anything happened to him, we would need to use it to receive that pay because they paid all the seamen for 3 kids for life. their wives and my dad shouldn't have suffered. And so moving forward, and then we became homeless. And then I experienced another situation of homelessness. And everything burned. And then from there, fast forward, another second situation happened when the rebels attacked the city the first time. I think it was 1998. That's the time they burned their house. And then the second time where I was living, January 6th, in Sierra Leone knew that. A couple of days after my birthday, 2:00 in the morning, we had boom, 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 like manners from heaven. So the rebels were tired of living in the bush. And then they woke us. I said, I was in school. And then we were asked all the family kids to sing for them, for the rebels. They said they're tired. So they were using us as scapegoats. And it's long to explain about the Civil War crisis. Will be another series. So from that end, we started experiencing again. I saw death. I was chased by rebels. And I wouldn't say I was lucky, opposed to the other people who passed away, as opposed to the other young boys, adults who lost their limbs. But I think God sets me to be the person I am. I remember something that I've not mentioned. My dad, we were up in the mountain as a young boy. My dad, he was a man, he used to drink, smoke, he lived life. Prior to his death, 25 years, he stopped smoking. And then he went to an Arab country where God used a man to speak life to my dad. My dad went back and stopped drinking, started praying, going up in the mountain like the prophets to pray. It was taking me with it. That's the foundation of my spiritual inspiration, the person I see today. I remember my dad was up in the mountain and said one of his child or grandchildren will become someone influential, public figure. Though he wanted us, me and my brother, to go into politics, but politics was not my passion, not my brother's passion. And moving forward, and that spiritual developments, that's what my dad embedded in me, helped me to be the person I am. So the documents to fight the government, we lost them. So the reason why I did that, I remember you mentioned about the Civil War crisis. I just gave you that. And I saw we were running over dead bodies. We saw there's what's it called, a vehicle labor. They use it as it's not robot, we call it omolanke. So it's a big carrier with two tires, wheels, car wheels on the side. I saw dead body piled. Yeah. I said piles on each other. We're running, escape, diving for our lives. Yeah.
Well, was that the time that you came to England? Or maybe you could tell me more about specifically how old were you at the time, and your friends and the people that you have grown up together. Have you been hearing from them, like what has happened to them, and what was actually happening in those moments? If you were able to reach some of them, and of course, I understand that this is a very chaotic situation. Everybody's running for his or her life.
During those days, because it was in my early teens, yeah, approach and mobile phone was not. There was no such thing as mobile phone common in Sierra Leone. It was not there actually. So there was no way to keep in contact. You don't think about keeping in contact. You think about surviving. When I will go for days without eating food. Go for days without eating food. And when the rebels, when the fighting, when the battle stops, it's like we have time. and then I'm searching for food. You sacrifice. And there are times we'll sit down, it becomes like normal. And there are times we'll be sitting down outside, and the rebels will say, "Oh, death has not reached here yet. Where today death will come." And one of the things why people like us survived, if you live in an area where someone's child is part of the, in Sierra Leone, they said disloyal soldiers or the rebels, they would guard that area, but only the rebels, for the rebels would not make any destruction in that area. Then you're partly safe, but you're not safe to another different fractions who were fighting for the elected government, President late Tijan Kaba, former Tijan Kaba, because they had the Kamajos, they had the ECOWAS, the peacekeeping force, who were fighting for the elected government, and then they had the loyal soldiers. So when they come in that area, we were dead. So that literally meat to be eaten, to be killed. So we were not safe on either side because they don't trust us. And the rebels as well, when they push them away and other new rebels come, they don't trust us as well. They said we voted. That's why they were chopping the tongues of people not to vote. So we were fortunate. So you wouldn't think about your friends. All you're thinking about, but there are times in the area when everything is normal temporarily, we'll go around, is everyone safe, like the neighbors. But your friends, like the ones that you attended school, because it's just survival. You're just hoping that after the war, it's because it was after, not after, because the war finished after when I left, I escaped towards that. It was 2000. I left Sierra Leone, about 24 years ago. So when I left towards the end, at that time, the rebels were left the city. And the second time they attacked, and that's another time I saved my parents again. And I said, I will not run away. And again, the other place where I was living, after the house where I was living was burned down, and the same thing happened. I said, I will not escape without my parents, because we grew up in a lovable home where we love each other. So we fight together for each other. We stay together. So as a child, as a young boy, I refused to escape alone, but to die with my family. And then I went back and I told my dad, not knowing that the previous night, they were lined up to be slaughtered by the rebels. And then I said, let's leave. Because the rebels were born. This is the second time. This was 99. The second time they attacked the city. And then as we left, they were burning houses. In fact, they burnt 8 people alive. Next, adjacent to my dad's place where they were living. And then we escaped, and then we ended up staying at the National Stadium. That's another day for another story. We explained and the first time I explained, when I said I asked my parents to leave, I didn't explain that because I was cutting the long story short. The thing I learned about intuition, as I said earlier, that's why I'm making reference to this for you to understand, an audience to understand. So they were looking for my dad because my dad was influential. He saw all the visions of politicians, leaders in Sierra Leone. They knew my dad. So they were coming. My dad was influential. Governments, presidents were sending people to my dad. It was that influential. I've written a book about my dad that I've not published yet. So because of that, and people saw my dad as a threat. They went to look for my dad. They said they wanted his head. They were looking to kill us. So because of that intuition I followed, that's why I saved my family. So you see, so even your neighbors, your friends, you will not trust them. Because if they know that you're supporting one political party and you're against the other political party, you are dead. So that's how so many people were lost their lives. So the question you ask at that time, Rebel, you have to be careful. If you're supporting the elected government, you keep it to yourself. If you listen to one radio channel, you shouldn't expose it to listen to another, because we've got two different channels. One, and the rebels, they given message, and the other one, the government, elected governments. So you don't think about that. It was crazy. And people will know more about my life in that Civil War crisis.
You said, okay, even the president was sending people to reach your dad because he was an influential person at the time, right?
Yeah, it was very inspirational. But that, because what people, some of the neighbors, the people, they didn't understand my dad. They thought my dad was this, how they call this medicine. We call it Sierra Leone Maori man. My dad was a spiritual leader. He was a prophet. I never called my dad as a prophet, but now me understanding the Bible, reading, understanding the concept of prophets, that was what my dad, as a child, he used to take me to sleep in the cave. In caves, we used to sleep on rock, on sea. We used to sleep in the mountain. We walk for like a couple of hours, slept in the tallest building in Sierra Leone, where you see my dad was one of the most influential leaders in Sierra Leone, spiritual leaders in Sierra Leone. God empowered him. That's where I learned the power of spirituality from within, but I didn't understand it as a child. Does that make sense? But looking back in retrospect, and then now I understood that.
So I was trying to understand if maybe your father had any political position in terms of maybe office or something like that. This is going to be important for me now, in that the story actually begin understanding your father, that he have worked for a long period of time, for over 25 years. The government seized the money. But now he's beginning to become influential, whether he's fighting for the sake government or so I'm trying. That is why I'm trying to understand if he had any political position or any influential position. Okay, we understand now that it's linked to sort of inspiration. Was that where he ended, or maybe he was actually having a position politically or something like that?
My dad, I would say, he stood for Sierra Leone. He was an inspirational leader. The description of my dad, he was an inspirational leader, someone that God used. He allowed God to use him. So, and he was praying for the nation, and he prayed for so many leaders, and there were people, politicians, normal people. Prayer was known. In fact, everywhere if I'm around influential politicians and I mention my dad, people would grab my hand. I remember the former commissioner, high commissioner in the United Kingdom. He studied at the same university, Loughborough University, where I studied. I was working as an ambassador for the university, and I saw him. And I said to Mr. Eddie Toure, he's late now. And then I even shared a picture that I took with him. And he was trying to locate where to go. And I said, and I spoke Creole. I said, oh, so you speak Creole? I said, yes, my dad is late Lamin Dumbuya. He grabbed my hand and he had entourage, and he told them that his dad was very powerful. So the point I'm trying to say is that he gave me his card. So he was influential. He was a spiritual leader. So he was not supporting one. I know obviously he connected with different politicians, but his position, as I knew him as a dad, it was for the nation. He prayed for Sierra Leone, and he guided any political, or like the leaders who were there. It was actually just giving them the direction, telling them, this is what you need to do. This is the message I have. So all the things that he predicted, he said, all happened. So because of that, they respected him, the political leaders. So he was well known in the political with different political leaders knew him. So his money was not seized alone. Remember, as I said, there were numbers of seamen who were paid. So, when the shipping company paid the money to the government to distribute their benefits, their salaries to the seamen. So the people were in charge, took the money. That's how it happened.
Thank you for that. No, I was asking before. So at this particular time, where there was the ECOMOG, then there was also the government control area. There was a rebel controlled area in this period that we are talking about now. How old were you at the time, and what do you remember, particularly of which forces was controlling your region? Was it mostly rebel control, or maybe sometimes the government control army sometimes come in and they were driven away? Can you share something in that line?
So the rebel war, with the civil war crisis in Sierra Leone, to give you a brief description, it was perplexed, very complicated. So in the city, so the rebels, the war was defined by different fractions. As I said, you've got the Kamajos. The Kamajos, these are civil defense forces for the elected governments they were known by tribes, specific tribes. I don't want to mention the name, for political reasons. So this Kamajos were fighting for the elected governments, were civil defense forces. And then the West African Peacekeeping Force, the ECOMOG, right, were there to reinstate the elected government because, if I'm correct, I think it was 1997, I hope I'm correct, May 25th, when the elected government, Tijan Kaba, was overthrown by the rebels who were partly disloyal soldiers, as they would say, quote unquote, who overthrown the government. So, and then you have the loyal soldiers who were fighting. So one fraction, the loyal soldiers who were with the elected governments, the West African Peacekeeping Force who were fighting for the elected governments, the civil Kamajos, the civil forces who were fighting. So these civil forces, remember, all of these people were killing innocent people as well. And then the rebels don't trust us in the city as well. So we're not even scapegoats. This is just like, we're like a bait, like the middle of nowhere, stuck in the middle. As Michael Porter would say, if you have no strategies, you're stuck in the middle. So when the rebels come, so we have to be friends with them to survive. They use us as a guinea pig. They use our sisters. They capture us to fetch water for them. And then when like other neighbors or people, they see, oh, you're with the rebels. And then when the ECOMOG come, the ECOMOG, the West African Peacekeeping Forces, or the other fractions who were for the elected government, they don't trust us as well. And if you're with the rebels, they said you were with them. So for us to be alive today, blessing, but I'm not lucky as opposed to the other people. For me, it's again the message my dad said when we're up in the mountain. I think that was a revelation that I understood now, that God wanted me to be this inspirational global writer and speaker to help people, help many people to cope with stress, not to commit suicide, to deal with that. So that's what I would say. So the city was like a birthday cake. Whosoever that captured that moment is in control.
Now, how did you manage to escape at the end of the day, or did the war end in your time where you were still under in this situation that is not very clear? or did you eventually escape, or with your family? Or can you say anything about that?
98, our house got burnt down the first time. And then the rebels were driven away from the city because it was heavy fighting between the other forces that I said. So they drove them out of the city and partly, and then they went back to reinforce. And they came back 9 January. That's the one a lot of people are talking about. They forgot about 98. I explain this in my upcoming book. So 99 was when they fought and they said no air policy. That's the national FRC, the National Provisional Ruling Council. That's the rebels and the soldier, the military force who combined it, became one group, and they said no FRC, no Sierra Leone. So that's when they started burning houses. And the Kamajals, the ECOWAS, peacekeeping force, and the loyal soldiers, they drove them away. So until then, they went back into the province area, and that was the time. It was around 2000, and then I made my way out of Sierra Leone. I went to Guinea, and then I almost lost my life because they said Sierra Leoneans, they were rebels and something like that. So from there, and I escaped. I found myself in Europe.
This is very touching as a story.
Yeah, it's just
Now,
it's of the iceberg I shared. People get to know more because I intend to do a documentary because I'm allowing this conversation to be fluid for people to know that the inspirational person they see today, the best international selling author. I don't like to talk about my awards, but for people to know, and for me to acquire, it was 2000, I think 2021, when I received an award from a king, royal, His Royal Highness Clive Rivers, a king, a Black American who was crowned as a king in Ghana because he influenced presidents and organizations and people around the world. He gave me an award for what I've been doing, giving back to the community, empowering people, entrepreneurship and leadership award, a global award, 2021. And then in 2022, I gave me another award as the icon of Europe civility 2022. In fact, his biography, my chapter is #1 in that book called it's to do with civility, royalty. So for him to give me that, it's all to do with the foundation of the nurture my parents, my mom. I learned from my mom the entrepreneurship mentality, the attitude of forgiveness, calmness, and the attitude of not embracing materiality because my granddad left acres of land and I'm gravitating towards that to go into agriculture. My mom was not showing any interest. So I learned from that. My dad empowered me with the power of education. So for me to be the person today was to do with the foundation of my family, that first stage of primary socialization, where I learned the norms and values. And so that's why I am the successful person I am today, for me to have all of these accolades that people get to know about.
you see, this conversation usually take few minutes. The part now, because the Obehi podcast, the way it is set up is, we know who is talking with us. Now, then we move to what is the person talking with us doing, which is your area of expertise in business, how people can benefit from you. So just now, because the story is a little bit deep, that is why we spend a lot of time on it today. Because you see, I didn't even ask you any question about your business and your strategy now and your books, because we have time for that. We're going to come to that. For the sake of time, of course, this conversation is not going to last for a very long time because that is what you told me. Otherwise, I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you to help us understand what have happened there. Because even war itself is a very complex situation. And for you to diagnose this, it takes a lot of time and a lot of expertise to do that. And of course, we're happy to learn from you, your experience, from the way that you see it, what you saw. That is also the important part of the storytelling exercise at the end of the day. But of course, even though we haven't really gone very deep in the conversation about the Sierra Leone Civil War, I think it is fair enough to also ask, now this is 2024. What lesson do we learn from that experience? What lesson have you learned from that experience as we move into the next chapter?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for creating the opportunity for people to get to know me, the entrepreneur, the business person I am today. Okay. So what I've learned from my experience is the power of education is the foundation that creates inspiration to realize transformation. So my dad, as I said, that message going back, that message my dad embedded in me. I didn't know the phrase education is better than silver and gold. But a lot of people don't understand that unless you understand um, economics. So I learned from my mom entrepreneurship. My mom was a business person. In fact, my entrepreneurship started as a child. I was selling kerosene when when we were experiencing crisis. I used to go up in the bush to, to pick plum, mangoes, to sell it and then give it to my mom. We used to go to, there's a place called the Lunge, the Tagreen, across the sea to buy different like mangoes. And then my mom used to sell in Sierra Leone, we call it John's clothes, those secondhand items, clothes. So I used to sell all of this. I sell stationery as a child during my early teens. So I learned all of this. And then I used to carve, I used to do stencils. We call it sprint screening out because I'm a fashion designer. And this is one of my designs I'm wearing. So I learned all of those entrepreneurship, but I didn't know that I called that. So these are all the foundation. So I was making money. I was giving it to my mom. I was even looking after my family. But I didn't know that. So all of this, that lessons that I learned, it was the norms and values that I learned because I studied sociology here in the UK. I studied psychology. So that's why I'm able to connect the dots. So I did not become the person that a lot of people see now, inspirational speaker or author or what's it called, entrepreneurship, whatever way you called me. I don't like to put myself in a box. Overnight, it's like the seed that you plant, as the Bible says, when you plant the seeds, then you can expect to harvest. But I didn't have all of these expectations. So it was just experiencing. The lesson I learned is to never give up, is to embrace an internal wealth. And then talking about internal wealth, if you read Richard Cantillon, one of the father of economics, you defined in the 18th century, 1700s, in the 18th century, defined entrepreneurship. That so many people misconstrued the concept of entrepreneur. So it defined entrepreneur as people who take risk, the merchants, the farmers, different component, the traders. So because you take risk, you invest in something, and sometimes you don't make profits. So you use three components to define entrepreneurship. So it's like a risk taker. So and again, so I didn't know about this, but because my dad empowered that the power of education, that's why I did not give up. I continued even when I came to the UK. I experienced homelessness. I lost over £30,000. I invested in a business, container business, to start my fashion. business when I went to Sierra Leone 2015. The year I lost my dad, I haven't seen him for 15 years. The last time I spoke with him was 3 days before he passed away. I said, Dad, I will see you soon. I can't wait to kiss and hug you. I can't wait to show you my certificates. He said, I wanted to see my son. He didn't see me as an adult. I was meant to travel 2014, but because of the Ebola crisis, I could not travel. I spent over £3,000 to store the container items that I had here. I've got all of those images on Facebook. People have been following me. So I lost over 15 and £30,000, and then I became homeless that same year because of friends, not because I could not pay rent, because of people, family, friends that I trusted, people that I lodged in my house. They changed the key. They put me into that. I started sleeping at the park. So again, I'm painting all of this picture to know that I learned the power of not giving, the power of inner wealth. Richard Cantillon defined wealth as three components: about conveniences, about pleasures of life, and what's the other? The conveniences, the pleasures of life, and food. So those three elements is enough to make you feel wealthy. So that's what it embedded. And my mom, with all the lands they have, remember, if you have land, you're wealthy, because all the wealth, the definition of wealth, is to do with, because the land, the production that we have in society as one of the branches of economics, right? You have land, labor, capitalism, enterprise. So the production, all the things that we have, the phones, all the material things that we have, they were products, byproducts of the land. So if you have land, you're wealthy. My dad embedded that, said, you can have everything in life outside you, but without education, you will perish.
Thank you for that. On the question of economics, of course, we are coming to that. We're going to have a separate conversation on that because it's really very important. We will talk about that. Yes, we will talk about that because even across Africa, we see a lot of people that are living in penury, even with their land, that maybe sometimes we haven't thought of how we could use the resources. Because maybe sometimes everything we have is a resources, but if you don't put it to the right use, and including even knowledge, it is said that knowledge is power. Yes, but that is a way I say it these days, that knowledge is a potential power. The right application of knowledge is power. If you know something, you don't put it to right use, that thing cannot help you. Anyway, I think we will come to that. But help me understand it. Let's take the conversation, because since you don't have enough time today, I want you to just spend the time on the Sierra Leone Civil War and your experience. Now, you have thought of what you learned as a person. Because you're an adult, you have grown up, you can also do your analysis now. Now, let's look at Sierra Leone, your country. What have the country learned from this civil war?
Okay, good. Great questions. So I'll be precise, but let me just share my thoughts on that. And I will say I underpin what you said about the power. Like people tend to misconstrue the word education is power, and you said it in a nutshell. If you don't use it, and you will get to know me more. And I said this in my book, and in fact, I used to embrace that. And in my book, I said education is power. But what I ask the questions, what power means? It can be a negative power or a positive power. So you can learn the wrong information or education, and that will take you to depression. So the powerful education I learned from my parents was the wealthy education. And now if you don't use it, and because of that, that's why I am successful today. Because when people get to know me, you understand some of the successes I've endured for me to be the person I am today. Because I applied those education on the foundation, because that's what I learned. So we're going to get into that on another series. So now talking about the what we learned, again, it connects with the same conversation about education. A lot of people have been misconstrued education, and I've seen some of the entrepreneurs out there. I'm just expressing my own thoughts, my own opinion. You know, they would say entrepreneurs, "Oh, education is not important, and you don't have to go to school. You don't have to be educated to be to make it." But you're writing a book. But where did you learn the basic how to speak? People that misconstrue that. So the point people don't understand, this what you're doing here. You're creating platform for people to educate yourself. In a book we just published, a leadership book. I'm one of the 70 leaders around the world. Published that book on Amazon. The definition about education I explain in 3 different contexts: informal, non-formal, and formal. I encourage young people to embrace that, adults. So for me, the education, the person I am today, it was not solely to do with the educational system. Because of those values I learned from the Civil War crisis, my family, and applied it. Otherwise, I would have forgot all of those knowledge I've gained, because I apply those basic knowledge I get. In fact, you don't have to go to university to be educated. And people need to understand that. My dad, I consider my dad as one of the most highly educated and wisest man ever lived. But guess what? He never went to school, that as far as I know. You see where I'm coming from? So a lot of Sierra Leoneans did not learn from the rebel Civil War crisis. And because of them, again, mindsets, I explain this, I'll share this in my book. Mindset is past experience. Mindset is past experience, because they don't have this growth mindset to unlearn and relearn, because we keep repeating the same things. So a lot of people, from my own observation, as the person I am today, some people within my community love me for the person I'm being. Some of them don't like the fact that I am speaking directness. That's what my dad is. I don't speak to entertain people. Yeah, I've got that different personality to entertain. So many Sierra Leoneans, based on my observation, even current leaders, did not learn from it. Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. What that means is that we keep doing the same problems, keep creating the same problems. People are suffering in Sierra Leone. We've got all the natural resources that we have. All the things that you have, you see, we used to iron ore. We use it to create skyscrapers, pots, car pots. All the things that we use from the phone. We've got so many. Forget about diamonds. Diamond is just one tiny aspect. Civilians have all these natural resources, but why right now as I'm speaking, people are suffering light. I had a conversation with someone yesterday, because the Independence Day was April 27th. I did not celebrate it, and I said, "What are we celebrating?" Because you're celebrating Independence. April 27, 1961, was granted the freedom to be independent. But are we dependent? Are we independent? No. We're looking for handouts, and even the local people. So the point I'm saying, a lot of people did not learn from it because of the knowledge, old mindsets, because they don't have this critical thinking that we're supposed to learn in the classroom and apply it. So they're not applying the education they learn. That's why people are still suffering. And as I said, Albert Einstein once said, we cannot solve our problem with the same thinking we used when we created them. So the same mindsets that we used when we created war, people are dying as I was speaking in Sierra Leone, struggling. They did not learn. I learned from it. Only a few people learned. That's why I'm using my platform. That's why I've been helping people. I worked with social entrepreneurs. I work with presidents and founders of organizations. So I've been helping. I'm one of those people that help people behind closed doors. They earn their awards. I've used my money building businesses, people. That's why you see that topic when I share about business development, when people come to me with their business ideas, I share some of the things I've learned. And then I guide them and apply the strategic knowledge I have. We don't have leaders. For example, I'll say because my political party in Sierra Leone, because I'm a citizen of the United Kingdom. I'm a citizen of Sierra Leone, but my identity I created for myself. I'm a global citizen, so I unlock all that limitation. My identity is global. I'll consider myself, and my religion is humanity. I use the Bible to make reference because Christ led me to read the Bible. No one taught me to read the Bible. And talking about education, Proverbs 4 says that as children of God, we must seek wisdom, and the beginning of wisdom is understanding. So the education, whether in the classroom, whether on YouTube, there, if you don't have understanding, as Proverbs 29:18 says that people lack vision will perish. We have revelation, but we don't have the vision. And that's the same thing why businesses are failing. And that's one of the reasons why Blockbuster failed. They went into bankruptcy. But why? Because I said it's in the book that we published. And the reason why is the same mindset the civilian people they have, because they have said, oh, brief story just before we round up. And so if you know the story of Netflix founder has the entrepreneur or innovative mindset in my definition. So this people can look it up. So they are on the internet and the marketplace. Yeah, when it comes to digital marketing, they're there. Netflix was built on the foundation of the industrialization mentality mindsets, brick and mortar. That means when you have an idea, not like now you have the internet or website, you create your platform. We're using social media platform. So Netflix, we're there. So they saw opportunity in the marketplace, in the business environments, right? And then they proposed, the founder went to Blockbuster and he proposed to them, to the CEO. And the CEO had over 20 years experience. And they laughed and said, let's collaborate, innovation, let's collaborate. You take my, and that strategic partnership approach, you take my part of my business, my culture, incorporate it in your business, and then I'll take you online. Let's collaborate. And you know what the CEO said? No, he laughed at it. This people can read it. I think there's an article on the internet about it, several articles. And then he refused to collaborate. Guess what happened? I think it was 2010 or a few years. They went into bankruptcy because of the fixed mindsets. They thought that because they've gained market dominance, they've dominated in the market in the entertainment industry, so they were complacent to success. Your success is outdated. So that's why you need to have the mindset of inspiration, growth mindset. So that was the reason why they failed. And then Netflix is still alive because they have that growth mindset. So Sierra Leone people did not learn. So for people or within the African community or in business, you need to unlearn and unlearn. We need to have that childlike mindsets to be great. We need to unlearn. To have a childlike mindset means that we need to unlearn.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. I appreciate that. The question I would like to ask you, because we didn't really have the time to explore the Sierra Leone Civil War. I want to really point that out because there were many other questions that we really needed to ask to sort of set it up as an argument to explore many areas, understand the player and all those dynamics. But that is okay.
We can do part two.
All right, we can do part two of that.
Don't mind. Yeah, then we can have long time to have a discussion. I don't mind. For you, I'll do it.
All right, thank you so much for that. We will plan for that. Now, looking at it from the point of view, looking at Sierra Leone as a business, What do you think should be done to make sure that this economy work? I'm not talking of working for only 2 or 3 people, but working for the people of Sierra Leone, so that those parents whose children's hands were put on the wood are practically chopped off. Because I remember, for example, a couple of years ago, I did a documentary where I looked at civil wars in Africa. Not only in Sierra Leone, but that of Sierra Leone was particularly important, but also that of Nigeria. In Nigeria's civil war, more than 1 million people were killed. There was also talk of Rwanda. So the question I was basically asking, because the thesis of the documentary was, how are we squaring up the idea of Pan-Africanism against the evil that we are committing in Africa by African people? How do we square it up? Who are we fighting for, even in this civil war across Africa? Are we really sure we are doing this for our good? Are we learning from it? Anyway, again, we don't have the time to be able to go into those details. We do that in the second episode. Now, look at Sierra Leone as a business. What do we need to do to make sure that the economy works, that it works for the interests of the Sierra Leonean people? Help me with that.
Thank you. So first, it's a mindset. When you get to know me, you know that when you come to me as a business person, as a business consultant, so to speak, either way you call me, I'm helping people innovative, holistic approach. My research, the diagnosis I've done for Sierra Leone, is to do with mindsets. Yeah. So first, we've been brainwashed by the wrong. I don't like to use the word wrong, but let me put by the toxic education, right? Just like we're talking about. So when you have a powerful toxic education, then you've lost. You don't have a vision. Because from a strategic point of view, because a vision is the direction of any organization, right? And that vision is driven by the purpose. When you look at the strategic concepts, so the overall purpose of any organization or any business, Sierra Leone as a business, is determined by four important factors. Firstly, as the mission statement. The mission is the why. So why do we need to do what we need to do? Or why are we in this business as a Sierra Leone, right? For example, as a Sierra Leone or Africa, as a continent or Sierra Leone, we want to create a transformational change, economic wealth for the people. We want to create the environment where entrepreneurs can thrive, right? And the younger generation would have a better foundation for the future. So it goes into the mindset. No one's developed outside himself. We were created in a womb. So from a strategic point of view, there is a strategy called strategic capabilities. Before I go into that briefly, so as I mentioned, the overall purpose of an organization, why, your mission statement, and then it leads to the vision. The vision is a what? What are you trying to accomplish? And then by doing that, you need to have those core values. Those core values are guiding you. Don't compromise your core values for instant gratification. If you're given as a leader or a manager position, know that you're there not to corrupt, not to enrich yourself, but the vision is to enrich the nation. And then you set your goals. Those goals are the targets, different strategic goals. Those are the four components. So your why, that's your mission, why you're doing what you're doing. Your mission leads you to your vision, what you're trying to accomplish. Those are core values. Then the question is, who defines those core values? Those values as an organization, the leaders for the nation. It has to be the leader, the vision. And then those values must not be compromised for instant gratification. That's a strategic approach. And now, the resources, capabilities. From a strategic point of view, you have the human, you have the finance, and then you have the physical. The human, the civilians, the people who are the managers, right? The people who are running the nation. Or not only because we are part of the government as well. The people there, We don't need to wait for the government, the official government, to create opportunity for us, but we need to be the entrepreneurs, as I've done, as I'm doing, to create that opportunity for ourselves. We use adversities as an opportunities. So until we understand this strategic perspective, we will not even know how to brainwash ourselves, because we need to brainwash again with a mindset of growth mindset, because you cannot give birth to an old baby. So you need us. In Matthew 18, the disciples, they asked Christ, who is the greatest? Christ called a child, and he placed the child amongst the midst of the disciples. This is Matthew 18, 1-5. And I said, until you convert, become like little children and embrace humility. And whosoever respect the child honors me. That's just a summary of Matthew 1-5. So to be great, we need to let go of our mindsets. And then as a business person, as Sierra Leoneans, we need to go within. As Michael, the resource-based view from a strategic point of view says that we have, in order to gain a competitive advantage in the marketplace, we need to focus on a strategic resources that are inside. Those like the people, that means, do we have the competency? If we don't have, we need to have a training programs. If we're not going through the educational system, we need to invest in ourselves. I have almost that. If I don't have up to 1,000 books in my house, I have up to that hundreds of books and books, as I said, because of my mindset. That's why I'm successful. I don't need money to define me, but I'm thriving. I'm that wealth. I've helped people realize organizations. So I'm wealthy because when my mom passed away, they did not take the land they possess, but the experience in their hippocampus. So for that, again, what I've learned is the mindset we need to, is education. This thing we're doing is creating opportunity. That's what you're doing as well.
Thank you so much for that. Now, people want to connect with you. Share with them, how can they reach you? How can they connect with you to do business? Why not?
So I've got my website that I'm still going under constructions. I put it live, and then because of other things I'm working on, so it's on my LinkedIn, but you will say coming soon. So and the major places they can get me. My LinkedIn is my professional profile. You can go there, and some of the services that are offered, they're there. And also, if you Google my name, Buckarie, Bekarie, and Dumbuya, Dumbya. I believe that it will show here. You can look at the description. And you can just Google my name, or take you to my LinkedIn profile and my Facebook, where you will see and you realize that's the book that you see today. How, when you come to me to help you for business, guess what? You would discover something about yourself and the inner greatness that you have. I use a holistic approach. As you can see, I'm not showing off, but I'm showing off for you to know. I don't just talk. People that know, they know. So I use a holistic approach. Mindset, body, business, all of this you would get from me. And then you become not only a successful business in the business environment, but a successful person. As I always say, the money you have in your bank accounts is not yours until you use it. So the memory that you have, that's what you take with you. Be a source of inspiration. Like I am the bridge of inspiration and transformation.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really love when you say that the money you have in your bank is not yours until you use it, because it is in using that we actually develop. I was, anyway, for another day, we'll have time to talk.
We have that, and then I'll go in more into the design thing and everything for people. And then just to round up,
what's your final thought to round out the conversation?
And okay, I'll say it as God revealed it to my mind. I've seen people, they follow in crowds, not quality. The person that you see, unless you come into my world, you will not know that I have celebrities who are actually seeking my fashion designing. This is my brand. I designed this. I was told that I would not become a fashion designer. I would not make it in a fashion designer more. I was refused when I decided to pursue fashion. I was refused the opportunity to pursue that because I didn't have the qualification. But guess what? 10 years down the line, I'm a fashion designer. This is my design. So never give up. Don't allow the definition of people to become your vision, your conviction. Life is about mindsets. Your mindset is your past experience. So become the director, the manager of your life, your CEO. If you look inside, then you discover your greatness, you become successful. You look outside, you frustrate yourself. So life is about inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate the conversation. And of course, I'm looking forward to the next one. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, T. I appreciate you.
And
God
you
bless.
too.